You guys are not going to believe what happened the day I uploaded my last video. It hailed and snowed in June. And before anyone points out that I live in Iceland, this is not normal this late in the year. Maybe late April, early May, not June, and especially not in a southern part of the country. Anyways, that aside, I want to apologize for some inconsistencies in my top 7 lately. Chaeyeon floated in and out in the last 2 videos, and it is because when I do the little outro bit, I just go over the pictures and add the ones I like, so some girls are going to be inconsistent. But if she makes it into part 2, my top 3 are going to always be Jiyoon, Fuko, and Gyuri. The other 4 are subject to floating based on the vibes when I edit. Anyways, this is the penultimate episode of part 2, the last chance for the trainees to save themselves. In Island, that means facing off against another trainee in the same position, hoping to impress the judges. In Ground, it means one last appeal to fans. By this episode, I am officially done with survival show recaps. It's very clear that the editors or producers don't actually understand how those work. It should just be, this is what you might have forgotten or missed on previous episodes that's relevant to this one. Not an attempt to catch people up on all major events so far. Not all survival show storylines are created equally. Moving on. They start off the episode with even more build-up for that Jiyoon and Jungin beef, and the people are tired. They're making drama out of Jiyoon finding a place to sit and eat her breakfast. And in Ground, on the other hand, Joowon expressed some shock at realizing Ground is only a practice room. Probably exaggerating a bit, but I mean, they've only shown us the practice room in that one room with the chairs, so maybe. Back to Island we go for the proper mission reveal, where they also remind us that the Islanders got a chance to submit lyrics for the song. It's a very short part, but they all get to work. Fuko gets a very positive edit showing her helping Yui and Coco with their translations, which pays off as Fuko ends up winning and getting her lyrics into the official version of the song. The song is called IWALY, or I Will Always Love You. I'm going to be honest, after Final Love Song, I was terrified that they managed a sample of the I Will Always Love You. But the demo was sung by someone who sounds like an off-brand Rosie, and that immediately confirms to me that Jiyoon is meant to be in the final lineup. There is no way she can't excel vocally when the song is pretty much made with her in mind. Their overall ranking from the mentors decides in what order they get to choose their position and in which team, and I thought they meant like their average score, the signal song plus Seesaw plus the units we just had, but no, the judges gave them one last evaluation considering their performance so far, which is a really nice way to rig the selection. However, as the lyric writing winner, Fuko gets the ultimate choice. She can choose any position she wants, no matter if someone else has already chosen it. Meanwhile, in Ground, they reveal the song and the 8-member version of it for their team. By the way, there is going to be very little focus on Ground this episode, which really bothers me. The rankings and positions are as follows. Bang Jimin is ranked number 1 overall, and she chooses part 4 in Team A. Following her is Chae Jungin, who chooses part 5, also in Team A. Fuko is 3rd, meaning we skip over to Mai in 4th, who chooses Team A part 6. Sebi is 5th and chooses part 3 in Team A, the main dancer position. Yu Sarang follows in 6th and becomes the first member of Team B, choosing part 4 against Jimin. In 7th, we have Coco, who joins Sarang in Team B opposite Sebi in position 3, the main dancer. Nam Yujo is rank 8 and decides to oppose Mai in Team B's part 6. In 9th place is Kim Soo-jung, who decides to take a risk and go for Team A's position 2, the main vocal. Yui is the rank 10 trainee, and she also takes a risk and chooses Team B's position 1, the first center among them. Yoon Ji-yoon is up in place 11, and she goes an unexpected route, taking on Team A's position 1, Yui's opposing center. Ling Ling is 12th and faced with a choice between Team B's main vocal position or part 5. She decides to play it safer and goes against Jungin in part 5. Finally, Fuko gets her choice to override, and she chooses Team A's center position, pushing Jiyoon into Team B's main vocal. A blessing in disguise, if you ask me. Now we get to see a bit of Ground. They sort of force Joowon into the leader role, and she also takes on the main dancer position. I see they haven't learned from the last 3 missions. Alongside her, we get Gyuri as the main vocal, finally getting to show off her vocals again. Jiwon becomes their center with Yin in part 4, Yuna in 5, Chaeyeon in 6, Minsol in 7, and unfortunately Chaesol fails in all the parts she auditions for and ends up in part 8. This is definitely flashbacks to Jiyoon's edit in the Signal song. We pretty much spent the rest of the episode with Island. The teams employed different strategies. Team B nominates Coco to learn the choreo first, then teach the rest, while Team A goes for more of an all-together approach. Coco knows she can't win against Sebi in expressions despite being a better dancer, and so she puts in the effort to fix the one weak point Sebi has over her, vocals. She seeks out help from Sarang, Yuju, and Jiyoon, who all help her with different parts. Back in Team A, however, Sebi struggles with getting the details and information down, and I notice she has a really dominant right side of her face. As soon as you notice it, it gets really hard to ignore. Sujung also struggles with the vocals, and again, I really truly do understand that she wanted a chance to show off her vocals. I just don't understand why she didn't go for a smaller part that still had a good showcase, like part 3 or 5. But enough musings on that, it's time for the interim check for Team A. In short, not great. The vocals were off across the team with many disappointments. Sujung and Jungin both have voice cracks. Jimin also made some mistake, but I didn't catch it, so I can't tell you what it was, but it was mentioned. Monica then tells them that their performance is incomplete and not stage quality. B then succeeds everywhere A failed, but with how Mnet edits things, that just makes me think A are going to be better in the final performance. 24 says they're more stable vocally thanks to their main vocal, and I think that's something that has been lost to K-pop with the invention of survival shows. A main vocal isn't just someone who can reach high notes, they're the backbone of the vocals. If your main vocal is off, basically your whole performance is off. You can have a group full of solid vocalists, but you can't have a group without a main vocalist, whether they officially get that title or not. Anyways, they call up Sujung and Jiyoon for a double check, and I and 24 both agree that Sujung just doesn't have as much vocal training as she needs for this position, but Sujung questions herself in front of the mentors and tears up. We then check in with the main dancers, Sebi and Coco. All we get is Lee Jung saying Sebi has more movement and expression clarity with good details. I don't think they realized they were supposed to be evaluating the main dancers, not the centers. The girls are dismissed back to practice, and Team B discusses the possibility of A changing main vocalists, which Mnet uses as a chance to push more of the Jiyoon Jungin drama. I don't even want to grace them with a recap of that because it was really forced to me. They cut to Team A where Sujung steels herself to take on the main vocal part and reveal it was thanks to some cheering up from Lee Jung. Now we get into the performances, and I am immediately struck by how different the outfits are. Ballet core versus neon does not look like they're going to the same event, let alone performing the same song. As is tradition, they cut back to a team-specific background before airing their performance and mostly just focus on Team A organizing their expressions after interpreting the lyrics together. They also spy on Team B's practice video. In particular, they get hung up on part 4 and reveal how desperate Jimin is to debut in this final team. In the performance, I think I was really disappointed in the vocals. I wasn't expecting too much from certain contestants, but I felt like the vocals were really inconsistent. My biggest disappointments were probably Fuko and Jimin. Jimin just has an underdeveloped technique, and I think she knows that, which is probably why she went for a slightly smaller role. I don't think this was her performance. Fuko, I just don't think suits this song. Sojung was a pleasant surprise. I think she did pretty well, all things considered, but she's definitely not main vocal material right now. Mai performed as expected, and I think that was enough to make her one of the better performers this time, but she was really buried. I don't even remember her on stage aside from her one solo part. Jungin was also pretty 50-50. She probably made the smart choice going for part 5, but similarly to Mai, I didn't really feel her on stage. A lot of great performers on this stage, but none of them were in their element. Sebi also pretty much as I expected from her, but her performances have become pretty one-note to me. I haven't really seen her do anything different since Sweet Venom. She's a bit too comfortable right now. On the other hand, she buried the actual center, which is Fuko, so that's a bit disappointing for Fuko. She probably would have done much better as the main vocal or part 5. The mentors mostly gave out praises, such as saying that they seemed like a ready-to-debut team and that they could have a future as a debut team. They also praised the girls for their interpretation, which I guess is why the producers showed us that part. They said Sujung did well but lacked confidence, which is like, fair enough. I would too if the song was literally created for my opponent. But they chastised Jimin, saying part 4 was too short to evaluate, which is it's so funny. There are parts in the ground version that are barely a full line. There have been countless survival survival show performances where a trainee gets a singular line, and the show producers are the ones who divided the lines? Why would you air something that boils down to an internal criticism of your own format? But the gist of their criticism is that they gave Jimin rank 1 because they wanted her to go for a meteor part and basically earn it. So they technically gave Jimin a mission without telling her and pretty much admitted that they wanted her to use the number 1 rank to her advantage, which, you know what, it explains a lot. Because I think if you actually take the averages of all the scores so far, Mai is probably the highest ranker. Don't quote me on this because we don't know all the scores, but of the ones we know, I'm pretty sure Mai has the highest average. She's never been to ground, she's never been at risk of going to ground either. She always gets praised from the mentors, she was one of only 3 creative unit members to stay in Island. The likelihood of her actually having the highest average score is pretty high. So Jimin and Jungin getting the top 2 overall ranks from the judges was probably them testing the two of them, probably trying to push Jimin into a center role and Jungin into a main vocalist role. But both of them choosing to play it safe garners criticism from the mentors. It's such a stupid thing to criticize Jimin over. This is going to be a trend in these performances, and I'll go over it better at the end. It's time to move on to Team B. Before getting into the performance, they hype up Coco and Jiyoon a lot, Coco as the number 1 dancer and Jiyoon as the most anticipated vocalist. The pre-performance edit was all about Coco working on her expressions and acting after the review Sebi got in the interim. I have a lot to say on this, but it has to wait unless we want to spend 15 minutes rehashing the same things to get back to the point. If this was a team battle, I think Team B would take it. To me, they were a much stronger team. Everyone felt like they were needed on the stage. Obviously, they did have a better main vocal who was more suited to the song, we don't have to get into that. I do think Coco did a lot more to communicate the feeling of the song through her full performance, not just expressions. Yuju is probably the one I have the least to say about, but she did have the smallest part, so I guess that's to be expected. I do think she did a lot better in that part overall because she has a better rounded skill set. Yui was a great center. I wouldn't say she's necessarily the best centers candidate on the show, but I think she did a great job interpreting the song and she only got better as the performance went on. Ling Ling was a nice surprise. I already knew her lower register was much better, but I was honestly surprised at how much more impactful she was in the main part of part 5, the solo dance section, than Jungin. She's really underrated and I hope she gets to debut in a group that suits her. Sarang was also really refreshing in this part. She was very stable and I think this is a very comfortable position for her. Not the center, but she gets her moment to shine and she does it well. The mentors were really impressed by Ling Ling, saying this performance was like discovering her again, and I have to agree, she did really well. They actually didn't give Team B as much feedback as Team A unless I just completely missed it. They did say the performance felt like the team dumped them, but by the end they say Sebi won the first part and Coco won the second, which is interesting because the ending tends to be Sebi's strong point. In their opinion, Team B was more about solidifying their roles while Team A was about showing them something new. They praised Jiyoon's expression and also gave Sarang a lot of praise, but I don't remember the specifics. The mentors are torn in their decisions, but they make them. So the Islanders are brought to the stage, which has been modified to have these really weird platforms numbered by their parts in the songs. They call them up in pairs starting from part 6. Am I the only one getting flashbacks to Universe Ticket here? Part 6, between Mai and Yuju, goes to Mai, citing the fact that she was more expressive. In part 5, Jungin takes the win over Ling Ling due to her stable vocals supporting the team. Part 4, Sarang wins over Jimin, as the judges consider Sarang to have been better this time, while Jimin was just stable throughout the performance. In the main dancer part 3, Sebi wins due to theme, whatever that means, but they say Coco is the perfect main dancer, and I just don't think they're hearing themselves. How are you gonna call someone the perfect main dancer and not have them win when the category is main dancer? Between Jiyoon and Sujong and part 2's main vocalist position, it's not surprising that Jiyoon takes the win. They say she's a very sincere vocalist. And finally, Fuko takes the win over Yui as the center, as they consider her to have had a better interpretation of the song. So our first 6 members of part 2 are Fuko, Jiyoon, Sebi, Sarang, Jungin, and Mai. They tease ground's interim evaluation before jumping straight into showing their performance, a final appeal with a compliment from the judges, and then they announce the vote. The vote will be weighted 50% K votes and 50% global votes. I think I've seen this movie before. My final thoughts on this episode are a bit more on the complex side. See, When you choose the format of 1v1 position battles, you would expect that the trainees would be evaluated on their performance in that position. What really bothered me throughout this episode is that the mentors clearly had different expectations for certain girls, and they chose to evaluate them based on those expectations rather than what was actually presented to them. The clearest examples are Jimin and Sebi, in my opinion. With Jimin, it makes no sense to me that they would chastise her for the role she picked just because they gave her the privilege of first pick. That comes off like they were, in a sense, priming her for a certain role in the final group, which obviously there are certain contestants who you know will fulfill a certain role if they end up debuting, but that doesn't mean they have to fulfill that role on the show. It's clear they wanted Jimin to take on the center role, but I'm not even sure if it's because they're so confident in her skill or because they wanted to see her fail. She plays it safe, she goes for the literal first position after the main three, and then gets told the part is too short to evaluate. But what does that mean for her opponent, Sarang? Sarang gets praise and wins the battle in the end because they thought she stood up more in this performance, while Jimin, according to them, has just been stable throughout. I do think there's a bit of a misunderstanding with regards to what they're referring to when they say throughout, but my understanding is that they meant there were no peaks during this performance, not even during her main part. Agree or disagree with that one, I just saw some people interpret it as her being evaluated on her performances throughout the competition instead of this one. However, I do think the judges also consider performances in the competition when deciding who gets a straight pass to part 2, because that's just inevitable if you think both did great in this performance. Now the other part is Sebi v Coco, and just how ridiculous that was. If the position is main dancer, and one of them is the perfect main dancer, why is that not the one who advances to part 2? Just like with Jimin, I think the judges wanted Sebi to take on the center position. Not because they needed her to prove herself as a center, but because they wanted that showdown of their two favorites for center. But Sebi choosing the main dancer is basically close enough, and they can justify letting her through based on her center qualities. I am just baffled that this is a show with two mentors who are professional dancers and choreographers, and they are accepting a main dancer candidate who is not the best main dancer candidate. Sebi is a great performer and no one can take that away from her, but she was not the best main dancer. She was being a center. Her advancing instead of Coco in this performance is blatant rigging, especially when Coco gave Sebi a good fight in the aspects she had over her as a performer. She showed remarkable improvement, but, and this is the key, she showed that she is the best possible main dancer. This one just bothers me a lot because why give her that compliment specifically with no intention of rewarding her for it? Sebi advances because of her theme. That is a center judgment, not a main dancer judgment. It bothers me because I think a good main dancer who isn't the center knows how to pull back to let the center shine in their own role. I'm gonna drop this now because I don't have anything more to add to this. It's just a weird decision and makes me side-eye the mentors. Anyways, the official episode 7 has aired and I made the decision to not even watch the filler after seeing no part of the fan community care. Unfortunately, I was at work when episode 7 aired, so as of this recording, I will be watching it tomorrow. I will see you guys soon, and hopefully I can officially consider this review series caught up before episode 8 airs. See you then.